Over to you.
Okie doke.
And I'm going to hand around a piece of paper for attendance.
This one doesn't have little remote control clicky.
Oh,
I need to change the. Mine doesn't either.
Okay. Is it okay if I? Yeah, absolutely. You can just use the arrow keys. That's fine. Okay. Well, first, my name is Cindy asked me to come in and talk to you guys because I had bariatric surgery 16 months ago. This is my first time really talking in front of a group of anybody, so please bear with me. I have had to overcome some group anxiety issues in the past, so I'm gonna do the best that I can, but hopefully I can answer some questions or maybe open some eyes. I decided to pull up a few obligatory statistics, as I called it. I actually put together a PowerPoint for my Nutrition 3400 class, which I'm taking online. The increase in gastric bypass surgery, well, in all forms of bariatric procedures between 1990 and 2000 went from 55% increase of 55% to an increase of 93%, and Roux-en-Y has actually gone up ninefold, and that is what I had. Excuse me, I had, I cannot remember if it was distal or proximal. He wouldn't tell me. All he told me is I have 150 centimeters of my duodenum bypassed. Says, in an academic review of extensive studies on postoperative outcomes of bariatric surgical weight loss, the following was found to be true. Bariatric surgery appears to be a clinically effective and cost-effective intervention for moderately to severely obese people compared with non-surgical interventions. Based on my own experiences, I would say that's true. Before I had surgery, I had a lot of comorbidities. I was a normal-sized kid. I wasn't in any of the, I was never considered obese or even overweight until I hit puberty. Come to find out 20 years later, I have PCOS, and that had a lot to do with the waistline just kind of going and not stopping. I was about a year and a half there, and I was about 5, maybe 6 here, if I remember right. This was me at my heaviest weight. I was 322 pounds, I'm 5'4". This one here, that had to have been fall of 1998, I'm guessing. This was 2001, and this was the summer of 2001. By this time, I didn't leave the house, or I should say, I rarely left the house. As you can see, I have a bunch of kids here with me. I ran a family daycare out of my home, which enabled me to not have to deal with people at all, if I could help it. And the 2 older boys here on the left are my stepsons that I raised from infancy. There was a lot going on in my life that had caused me to get this heavy. First things first, I grew up in foster care, in and out, being shuffled around from foster home to mom to dad to relatives to more foster parents. I was very lucky, however, that I had a set of foster parents that I am still in contact with. They're still very close to me and part of my extended family. But my parents were not in my life for a good portion of my childhood. My mother for let's see, she was there the first 2 years, and then I didn't see her again until I was 5. Then she was spotty in my elementary school years, and then I didn't see her or talk to her or hear from her at all from the ages of 8 to 16, and she was the only adult in my life that never based their worth of me on my size. So I was surrounded by people, adults, teachers, foster parents, whomever, that constantly told me, well, if you would just lose weight, you would be so beautiful. People would love you, people would like you. So when you give a child that, that kind of feedback and tell them that, you know, they're fat, therefore they're stupid, they're ugly, they're worthless, and then they go to school and it's reinforced there by teachers and classmates, it escalates into this. I was bullied in school. At middle school, I was actually out here between 7th and 11th grade. 7th and 8th grade was probably the worst. I was jumped in the girls' locker room, I was beat up, I was tripped in hallways. And then other types of bullying, verbal, I mean, you name it, I pretty much dealt with it. It was pretty bad. And then of course at home, my dad, who was a single parent by that time, he had been given custody of me, was an alcoholic and a sexist, and he was angry at my mother for leaving him when I was 2. And because I look like her and because I have a lot of her mannerisms, yours truly got to be the basis of his angry attacks, and a lot of that was on my weight. Both of my parents were normal weight, still are. My mom's, I don't know, 4'11" maybe, and she's maybe 130 pounds sopping wet. My dad has always been pretty average size, which is surprising considering his father and all of his brothers are super morbidly obese. And my grandfather died from diabetes complications. We were surprised he made it to 82, but he actually developed a gangrene infection after having gallbladder surgery at the age of 82. Some of the issues that I've dealt with that kind of put me in this realm, genetics. You know, like I said, my mom and my dad are normal size, so to speak, but both of them have siblings or parents or grandparents that had some sort of weight issue. Diabetes and metabolic syndrome were real big in my family. Severe childhood abuse pretty much speaks for itself. I'm sure everybody here has read what can happen to kids after they've had to deal with abuse. Foster care placement. You know, basically, I reported my own abuse when I was 7 years old to a school counselor. I remember that. That same day, I was yanked out of my home, and they didn't notify my mother. She showed up at the bus stop to pick me up, and nobody had told her a thing. And she now tells me that she knew something was up with me and had asked the school counselor to talk to me because she knew something was wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on it. And as a mom now, I get it. I totally get it. But, you know, you grow up thinking, why don't my parents want me? And my foster parents, as awesome as they are, were also thin and didn't quite understand and would say, oh, you know, your mom didn't show up for another visit, here's a cookie. Environment, you know, like I said before, food was used as a pacifier, and in my dad's family, food is love, and if you turn down a plate, then it's just part of the culture. It's considered offensive. Trauma as an adult. I am a survivor of domestic violence, psychological abuse, bullying, hence the reason why I stopped leaving the home when I was 320-some pounds. The thing that kind of did me in, Dr. Dormer talked about 24-hour fitness. I had a 24-hour fitness membership, even at this size. I had a personal trainer, and I was actually in there one afternoon working out on my own without the personal trainer, and 2 guys from the 24-hour fitness approached me and said, I believe their exact words were, your fat is disturbing us, you need to leave because you're offending the other patrons. And I had an instant panic attack and I never went back, even though I continued to pay for it. I just never went back. Let's see, I've actually had bottles thrown at me from cars. I've had glass bottles, like beer bottles. I've had plastic bottles, like the water bottles. One guy actually urinated in one and threw it from a car at me when I was walking down the street, and I was walking with my daycare kids, so that was really scary to try and explain to little kids this big why people do the things they do. Chronic health issues, a lot of that has come up, you know, PCOS, and everybody knows all the stuff that goes with that, and type 2 diabetes. I do have autoimmune issues that, of course, before I lost weight, the rheumatologist, the neurologist, the primary care physician, everybody said, if you would just lose weight, it would all go away. Well, guess what? It didn't, and it got worse. So, you know, everything's not always weight related, although it certainly didn't help anything. This is what changed. I had kids. I have twins. They are 5 and a half, and it wasn't so much having kids that really set things in motion for me. I had 2 girls. And I don't know, do any of you in here have kids? Yeah, so when you have a kid, it doesn't matter, in my opinion, if it's adoption, foster care placement, you know, bringing biological children into the world, all of which I've done. But at some point it clicks, and when you've had a rough life, at some point your mind clicks and says, I don't want them to go through this. I don't want them to have to deal with this. And I knew I had to do something. You know, I was, up until they were born, I was in a cycle of pretty unconscious self-loathing as a result of my childhood issues, and I had to stop and say, you know what, they don't need to see that. Because if they see me doing that to myself, then A, they're going to think it's okay to do it to other people, and B, they're going to think that's how they're supposed to grow up and perceive themselves, and I don't want that for them. Before my fibromyalgia and autoimmune stuff started kicking in, we were pretty active. My favorite baby shower gift was the double jogging stroller. I couldn't run. I've never really been able to run even as a kid. I believe my grandmother put it as, you're mighty top heavy, don't expect to run without hurting yourself. So I guess that was her colorful way of saying I inherited the Piesinger family female gene of a large upper half, so to speak. My girls were about 6 months old when we started doing walks in 2007. We did that year lupus, we did March of Dimes, and probably about a half a dozen others. Some of them were sponsored by the clinic I was working for at the time, and some of them I did for my own reasons, such as March of Dimes. My girls weren't real premature. They were 36 and a half weeks, and they were normal weights. I only gained 20 pounds, I think. They were, this little one in the purple, Kiana, was twin A, and she was 5 pounds, 14 ounces. Ajana was twin B, and she was 6 pounds, 14 ounces. And out of that, you know, I only gained 20, so I certainly was surprised. But despite that, even now, they're classified as obese on the BMI charts. Because Kiana is the shorter one there. She is 3'8" and weighs 68 pounds, and Ajana is over 4 feet tall and she weighs 73 pounds. But their biological father is 6'5", and all my half-siblings and cousins are all over 6 feet tall, despite me not being that tall. So I guess it's in the genes. So I'm a little hypersensitive when I hear people saying, well, you know, maybe we should take kids away because, you know, if they're obese. Well, you know, my kids don't watch TV, my kids don't eat processed foods. They eat what I send them for lunch. They eat fruits and vegetables. My kids actually choose broccoli over mac and cheese in a box, which I thought was bizarre, but I'm not complaining. Right around 2008, my health started getting worse, and nobody knows if it just was the time for it to happen, or if it was a mix of things. For their first 3 years, I was a single parent, so I was working full-time as a medical assistant. They didn't completely sleep through the night until they were about 14, 15 months, and I suffer from sleep issues already from fibromyalgia, so it was kind of a setup for disaster. You can see the stuff that I've dealt with. When my rheumatologist found the calcium deposits, I have diagnosed thus far in this shoulder, in both Achilles at the root, and they believe I also have it in this one, but I actually go in for x-rays to see if that's the case tomorrow. Nobody knows why it's happened. And of course at this time I was working full-time, going to school almost full-time, parenting by myself, and then they kept putting me on stuff like prednisone and Lyrica, which, not nice, not nice. Especially when you're dealing with depression based on your appearance, not nice. I moved back to Colorado I was actually in Texas for 6 years, which is a completely different story in and of itself. That's where my kids were born. But I tried for 10 years to get my various private insurers, Kaiser, Cigna, United Healthcare, 2 different states to cover bariatric surgery for me, and every physician I had wrote letters of recommendation that they just wouldn't cover it. Ironically, the clinic I worked for almost 4 years had a specific clause excluding anything related to weight loss. It seemed kind of like an oxymoron to me, but I lost my job with the clinic in January of 2010. My kids kept getting sick and I had to miss work, so they said, "You're out of here," and I moved back to Colorado. And I actually ended up on Medicaid, which I said I wasn't ready for, but you take what you gotta get. And I had surgery December 14th, and Dr. Metz is just awesome. He's awesome. You know, everything's been covered, my follow-up first year, and I do have to drive about 45 minutes each way because I live in Wheat Ridge and he's way out in Parker. But this was the follow-up care for my first year, and it very much reminded me of low baby care in the first year because I had surgery. I was in there for 2 days. Then he saw me at 2 weeks post-op to remove any remaining stitches or anything like that. And then I went back at 3 times. I went back at a month, 2 months, and then 3, 6, and 12 months. And now I don't see him again until this coming December, which is going to be what they would call my 2-year surgiversary, which I think is kind of a tacky way to say it, but it is what it is. These are the health issues that I had that have resolved since surgery. I had stage 3 hypertension. I knew I would develop some sort of hypertension eventually because both my parents have it and they got it in their 30s. But mine was really high. As you can see up there, 200 over 100 was about my average before surgery. So I was kind of a ticking time bomb, so to speak. Ironically, I actually laughed at Dr. Metz when I had my pre-op appointment. He said, by the time you leave the hospital, you won't have hypertension or diabetes anymore. And I was like, "You're just trying to sell me on this." And he's like, "No, I'm serious." And he was absolutely correct. I haven't taken a dose of any hypertension medication since December 16th of 2010. I haven't needed it. In fact, I've had near blackout episodes because my blood pressure has gotten too low. Nobody knows what that's about, but I'd rather have it too low than too high. We have acid reflux, type 2 diabetes, PCOS, hyperlipidemia. My lipids have always been high, and we don't know if it's genetic, if it's PCOS, or if it was had to do with my weight gain. But in my early 20s, it was up over 400 every time they tested it, and I couldn't take any of the medications for it. They tried niacin, and I had such nasty flushing episodes. I thought I was having a heart attack at work, which is always fun. Flip side, this is after surgery, some of the stuff I've been dealing with. And, you know, I've lost, gosh, since surgery itself, I've lost 96 pounds. But overall, I've lost a total of about 156 overall. Some of that I lost before I got pregnant with my twins. Depression is still an issue, but it's getting better. Anxiety and PTSD are probably the worst. People that end up morbidly obese a lot of times are guarding themselves emotionally from a variety of things. In my case, it was just dealing with people. I didn't want to be bothered with anybody. And in hindsight, that's what it was. I didn't realize it then, but it's certainly what it is. But I have been working with a therapist that specializes in trauma. She actually worked with some of the 9/11 survivors, and she's pretty awesome. And then, of course, malabsorption. That's why I kind of chuckled when I walked in and the talk was about Ally and the malabsorption, because it really is like gastric bypass in a bottle in a lot of ways. I have to be really careful with what I eat, and I knew that that was the right surgery for me because I knew I needed the negative reinforcement that goes with dumping or something called reactive hypoglycemia, where the blood sugar goes up really high and then it crashes so hard that you just literally freak out and start jittering. Some people I know have actually had seizures, and one gal I know has some sort of autoimmune disorder that's popped up since her surgery. But on the flip side of that, I know somebody that's lost 510 pounds in 2 years after having her surgery. And she's actually a psychotherapist, so it's been really cool watching her go through her thing while I'm going through mine. A lot of people have said bariatric surgery is the easy way out. Well, this is the list of supplements I have to take every day, and how much and how often, or I could die. Right now, the big issue for me is the Bifera. My ferritin levels went from 20 right after surgery to 3 2 months ago, and for some reason we can't seem to get it up. So I'm taking 2 different forms. I had to stop taking the regular bariatric iron because it wasn't doing anything for me. And then the rest of this stuff, and it's not just, I can't just plow it all together and shovel it down at once. A lot of stuff can't be taken together, like calcium and iron. Although proferin is supposed to be a form of iron that can be taken with calcium-containing food, but I'm not taking my chances. But this is the supplement schedule. So I literally have, I'm like a little old lady. I have those pill boxes, and I've actually got enough of them to count out a month's worth of vitamins and medications at once. Otherwise, I'll forget. But if you were taking this much, don't you think you'd forget too? A lot of people have asked me what kind of food I eat, and this is my vice. This is actually supposed to be against the rules, but I'll fix it. Oh, okay. As opposed to alcohol or tobacco or illicit drugs, I think this is a much better transfer of addiction than any of those things. I break my meals down. I do anywhere from 4 to 8 very small meals a day, depending on what kind of pouch day I'm having, meaning how the pouch, who seems to kind of rule a lot of things in my life now, feels that day. There's days where I have what's considered a food aversion, and I want absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with food, so I'll stick with protein shakes and like stuff like yogurt. And my very first thing of the day, something very interesting about this post-op thing is I have to drink